program and that you're satisfied with your results and with everything you have to complete, because I know that the program is like a ladder, like there's always a step and a step and a step. And I know that working and studying at the same time, it's a tough combination. So thank you very much for being here, basically for existing and for doing such a great job. And I don't know if, feel free to say no, but I would like to take a picture of the group just to have it in my history. So if you don't want to be in the picture, just turn off your camera. But let me see, I know I have to do something here because I can see Oscar only. I don't know why. Sorry, Oscar. I want all of the, okay, here, let me see here. There's a way to show everyone, but I don't know what's going on. Here it is. This one. Okay, so 3, 6, great. So I'm gonna count to 3, and you're gonna smile. 1, 2, 3. Another one, just in case. 1, wait, this is not my side, this is my good side. 1, I get confused because of the camera. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. So we're gonna start with Angelica's group, just to give you just some reminders. First, remember that each group has 15 minutes. Also that what you're gonna do is to use your poster to present, okay? Do you have any question? No, okay, I'm gonna keep track of time here with my phone, because I know that okay, so we're all ears.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all fine and ready for today, and that you all and we all get the best.
Angelica, sorry, there's something off with your volume, because it's like you're like in a hole. Like we can hear you, but you're far away.
Thing is that my headphones are not working today. I don't know what is wrong with them. Give me a second to see if I don't know, my tablet is not like recognizing
Okay, don't
this.
worry. Just give it a try, and if they don't work, then you just
I can use my son's. Let me go get them
okay.
and see if it gets better.
So this is your last class, right? And then vacation. Any plans?
In my case, my last class is going to be next week, Monday.
Okay, sorry.
No, we're pretty much done with the semester, so we're fine.
Okay, good.
And regarding plans, stay at home, rest, sleep, have a good time.
Uh,
You know
I
the
can,
usual.
I can feel the vibe. Yeah. What about the rest?
To read, like, like the book of my preference. And yeah, and sleep,
So
rest.
so
Yes.
you have you selected the book already?
Yes, I was like reading before the course, but then these last few weeks I haven't had the chance to read.
Okay.
But I would like to read
So what are
soon.
you reading?
It's called Porque son tan lindos los caballos.
Never heard of it. And I'm pretty sure it's not about horses. Is it?
No, no. It's related to a mother and her daughter. Yes.
Okay. No one traveling?
I'm working, so I just don't think so. It's
Okay.
because, language institutes work differently,
Oh,
right?
yeah, you're right.
So I'm just starting like the new term and it ends in August, and then we have like a little break there. And so yeah, times don't match, to be honest. But I'll
Yeah.
try.
Yeah, I know. You're right. But it's a like less things on your plate. Ready, Angelica? Nope. We can't hear you. You're muted.
I'm ready with
Now,
Spider-Man.
now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So, guys, could you share, please?
Sure, let me a
And I was,
moment. Oh, thanks, Dave.
Davey, you press the button on the right thing, on the right corner, the one that has arrows, and then it goes. I don't know if you knew. I just thought that maybe you forgot.
That's
Okay, so as I was saying, I wanted to greet everyone, and I wish you all the best in this presentation and in this course and in all your projects. Well, to begin with, our topic is our research topic is EFL teachers' perception of EFL curriculum policy and classroom practices alignment in a public experimental bilingual high school in Costa Rica, a focus on the development of speaking skills. So, the analysis of the alignment between the curriculum and the classroom practices has not been sufficiently contextualized in Costa Rica. So the purpose is to understand the Costa Rican educational context, help educators and researchers comprehend the instructional reality, stimulate further research, and improve daily teaching practices. So far, the English curriculum for bilingual schools in Costa Rica developed by the Ministerio de Educación Pública has been aligned with the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, standards to ensure international recognition. But despite the improvement efforts in MEP's English curriculum in Costa Rica, most students still do not reach the expected language level by the end of high school. This is according to a study conducted by Universidad de Costa Rica in the year 2021. So for this reason, um, the English study programs require deeper analysis to identify key limitations that prevent students from achieving the desired language competence. So this study contributes to language policy and planning, also known as LPP, by examining the micro level of policy implementation, specifically how teachers act as gatekeepers between official documents and students, and by analyzing teachers' perceptions of curriculum alignment with classroom reality. So this study analyzes how teachers perceive the alignment between the national curriculum policy and their speaking instruction in classroom practices. Um, so let's continue with the research questions.
Sure. So, in order to be able to complete like the purpose of the study that was described previously by Angelica, we followed the following. Well, we followed these research questions. How do English as a foreign language teachers perceive the alignment between national curriculum policy and their speaking skills classroom practices at a public experimental bilingual high school in Costa Rica? Regarding the specific questions, we have what specific aspects of English foreign language curriculum policy do teachers identify as align or misalign with their speaking instruction realities? What internal and external factors do EFL teachers believe contribute to the alignment or misalignment between policy and practice? And the last one, what strategies do EFL teachers use to align the curriculum and to address possible gaps?
Then one important part of the research project was the literature review, right? In the literature review, first we discussed the concept of curriculum and its main characteristics. And we found out that curriculum should be understood as a dynamic process rather than a fixed document. According to one of the authors we consulted, it must respond to students' needs, interests, and the educational context, and it represents the totality of learning experiences, shaped by decisions made at different levels. This means the curriculum continuously evolves based on classroom experiences. Also, one of the authors we discussed and distinguishes between the planned curriculum, which reflects official educational policies, and enacted curriculum, which represents what actually happens in the classroom, right? As this author named Kelly explains, the implemented curriculum is often different from the hopes and intentions of those who have planned it. Also, we found out that the curriculum also serves as a guide for teaching by defining learning objectives, methodologies, assessment, and the role of teachers. As one of the authors we consulted states, it reflects our institution's curricular and co-curricular trends, including their courses, educational objectives, a teaching approach, instructional aids, and evaluation methods, right? And also it emphasizes that teachers must combine strong subject knowledge, pedagogical skills, cultural awareness, and the ability to support learners' motivation.
Well, um, I may continue with Costa Rica. English teaching in Costa Rica is shaped by a social political system focused on tourism, globalization, and a growing demand of bilingual professionals. So, thanks to this, the curriculum moved from a grammar translation method to an action oriented approach, promoting intercultural competence and, sorry, well, it promotes this competence. It promotes the three learnings where the students learn to live in community and in a globalized world. And it promotes that students learn how to use the language to live in a community. They also focused this instruction on preparing students um, to have to use the language in a critical way where they can analyze and use the language to communicate their ideas and to change the world positively. So teachers are expected to use the language with students in class where they learn positive behaviors, where they criticize different aspects of society and It includes different themes, different domains that teachers are expected to cover during the school year, and they uh, they demand lots of input for the students, and they are expected to use the language actively and to be active participants in their learning process.
And since the oral element gained importance in the 1990s, the communicative method approach was the one that influenced the English teaching process. As described by Cordova et al., this method actually emphasizes the importance of listening comprehension in order to develop communicative competence in students beyond going going beyond the grammatical knowledge only. Rodrigo, in case you're talking, you're muted.
Thank you, Ray. And good afternoon, everyone. So now let's continue with the Costa Rican curriculum, speaking skill. So as Angelica mentioned, the Ministry of Public Education adopted the action-oriented approach, and which is aligned with the Common European Framework of Reference. So this approach places the speaking at the center of language learning. Rather than memorizing vocabulary or grammar rules, students are expected to use communicative in authentic situations and complete meaningful tasks. The curriculum view learners as social agents, meaning they should use English to solve problems, collaborate with others, and participate actively in real life contexts. In addition, the curriculum expects students to progressively reach a B2 level by the end of the secondary education through communicative activities, authentic materials, and technology integration. And finally, collaborative learning. So, although these objectives are well designed, our study explored how teachers perceive their implementation in actual classrooms. Now, let's continue with the methodology.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Um, can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, better.
Yes.
There, yes,
Oh, okay, thank you. So this study adopted a qualitative case study approach to explore EFL teachers' perceptions of the alignment or misalignment between the national curriculum policy and their classroom practices for teaching speaking skills. So this methodological framework enabled the examination of the teaching and learning realities and curriculum policies by considering participants' opinions, insights, and personal reflections. This was done by conducting interviews to the agents of this research project, which are the teachers. This choice of design facilitated the gathering of rich data through interviews, classroom observations, and document analysis of lesson plans. Um, so, this data arose from the interaction between participants and the researchers, reflecting a deep immersion in the subject matter. So this study included 5 English teachers from a public experimental high school in the metropolitan area in Costa Rica. This institution operates under the Ministry of Public Education as an experimental bilingual high school, part of the bilingual program. They work with 7, 10, and 11 graders, a factor that deepens the study by capturing a comprehensive overview of instructional practices across different proficiency levels or developmental stages. Each observed group included 15 students, and this enrollment threshold is mandated by the bilingual program for oral communication lessons per class. So let's take a look at the data collection procedures, and by taking a look at a little bit of the description of the instruments.
okay. Thank you, Ange. So one of our main instruments was in-depth semi-structured interviews. We chose this instrument because it allowed teachers to explain their experiences and perceptions in detail. Each interview lasted between 40 and 60 minutes and included questions about curriculum implementation, speaking instruction, classroom challenges, assessment, teacher preparation, and strategies used to bridge the gap between curriculum policy and classroom practice. So, because the interviews were semi-structured, we could ask follow-up questions whenever participants mentioned relevant experiences. So this gave us rich qualitative and data that reflected teachers' real perspectives. Our second instrument was structured classroom observations. These observations allow us to compare what teachers said during the interviews with what actually happened in the classroom. We observed classes without participating so that lessons could develop naturally. Using an observation checklist, we focus on aspects such as communicative activities, the implementation of the action oriented approach, differentiated instruction, technology use, and student participation. Together, together with document analysis, these observations strengthened the credibility of our findings through the data triangulation process.
So just as Rodrigo mentioned, we use document analysis as a complement. The idea with this method was to examine how the curriculum is reflected in the practice. So two main sources were analyzed: the national EFL curriculum and teachers' lesson plans. The national curriculum was examined to identify its pedagogical approach, learning objectives, and guidelines for developing speaking skills. And lesson plans were analyzed to determine how these speaking objectives and classroom activities were translated into teaching practice. And just as Rodrigo mentioned, this was used to support data triangulation.
Yeah, and if you all want, or any one of you would like to take a look at the instruments, you can scan the QR code and you can take a look at them. So let's go.
Sorry, Angelica, it's 15 minutes already.
Okay.
So you still need to share the findings and conclusion, but then it means that you have to be a bit fast, okay?
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's take a look at the findings. So the first misalignment that we found is that time constraints and student readiness, topic relevance, and emotional barriers represent the most prominent manifestations of curriculum misalignment. One of the teachers explained that it is it is challenging for teachers to integrate the construct of learning to be a living community into their classroom reality regarding student social and intercultural development due to the severe time constraints teachers face. Another finding is that students' proficiency levels represent a major challenge in the implementation of curriculum policies.
And another finding was that teachers perceived a disconnection between how teachers' English proficiency is evaluated, the pedagogical knowledge required to implement the action-oriented approach, and the technological resources available for its development. And also they perceived a disconnection between, they perceived a disconnection. Yeah, it's the same. Disconnection between those things.
Thank you, Davey. So teachers identified a conflict between curriculum objectives, the large number of the scriptures, and the actual assessment demands. Socioeconomic conditions and affective factors affected educational outcomes, and teachers demonstrate considerable resourcefulness in adapting instruction. However, the overall effectiveness of these efforts is undermined by the inconsistent implementation, time constraints, and a lack of deliberate pedagogical frameworks.
Another finding is that all the participants described that monitoring was like the most effective strategy to support students with different learning needs, and also the participants accommodate diverse learning styles to accommodate diverse learning styles. They offered visual, auditory, kinesthetic task options like role plays, recorded interviews, visual presentations, games, among others. And moving on with our conclusion.
So the conclusion is that the findings underscore the necessity of situating policy within classroom realities, providing targeted teacher training, developing coherent adaptation frameworks, and revising curriculum requirements to be achievable. Without systemic changes addressing these gaps, the disconnect between policy and practice will persist across public, experimental, bilingual high schools.
We really appreciate your time, your attention, and in case you have any question, this is the time. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. And I have a question, and I forgot to say that after each presentation, we're gonna open up the space or like opening the mic for questions. So I really expect you to ask a question or give a comment or something. So my question is, now that you're done with the whole process, okay? I would like to know if there is something you would do different regarding the data collection process. I understand that working and doing research in MEP institutions can have or can be challenging in many different ways. But I'd like to know if there's something you think, like if you could go back in time and say, like, you know what, we should haven't done this, because that also gives a clear idea of what can be done and what can't be done with MEP teachers.
Well, in my opinion, we haven't considered that. I don't think that we ever thought that the way we conducted the study was that something was not necessary or it wasn't done correctly. But what in from my perspective, what I would do differently is that I would include more participants in the study and include more observations, but I don't think that we would find different results. I think that we would simply like have more sources and more evidence that the misalignment is there, but maybe including different institutions too, but that would take lots of time and effort. But in my opinion, and I don't know, my researchers peers think the same way, but I wouldn't do anything differently.
Yes, I agree with Angelica. I think as researchers, what we would always love is to have more participants, right? To have more information, to have more points of comparisons, or to examine if there's differences, right? And I think that it would also we would also would like to add other institutions that are not maybe in the same region, right? To see if maybe the zone or the area of the school also affects right what we are researching. So I think that would be as the same as Angelica said, a number of participants and different
Mhm.
institutions from these different areas.
Yeah, that is quite interesting, Angelica, what you mentioned. I know that we tend to, or we have this idea, right? Like that the more the merrier, which is not always the case, or not. It's in qualitative research, because the idea is not to cover a lot, but to go in depth. But it also, what I found interesting is what you said. Okay, like maybe having more participants will help us consolidate even more and just confirm the same information. In that sense, yes, I agree with you, and also I also agree with Rodrigo when saying that we cannot deny that context plays a key role. So perhaps will be like the same mismatch, but different maybe details.
Yeah. Well, since I work with this program, I think that there are areas in Costa Rica that may have deeper problems, and there may be some other areas who might be working better and find that they are capable of doing everything that MEP is asking them to, and they are being more successful. But I think that we will find similar results, but as you said, with different levels of discrepancy or misalignments, even deeper misalignments. I know that rural areas suffer more because from what we read to conduct the lit review or to do the lit review, there are studies that indicate that in Costa Rica, the rural, some rural areas and some areas in the metropolitan area too do not have the same access and do not have they may be working with the same programs, but they are not working or not having the same results, and because they are doing these exams for students and the results are bad, but they have divided this in different areas of Costa Rica, and they have found that yes, the results are really bad across the country, but there are areas that are suffering the most from this um, lack of I don't know success regarding this important project of MEP, which is to have bilingualism in the whole country, and they are not they are doing a lot, but they should take a look at what we did, and they can find interesting ideas. Obviously,
Yeah.
there can be way more suggestions and conduct and study on what to do and what people suggested and specialists on the matter.
And I would like just to add, besides what my classmates already mentioned, is that now that we have like done with this case study, I guess that it will be, if I can start all over again, I guess that it will be more useful in a way, like to have or to propose, like a process or a technique or something that can, so we can go ahead and try to put that into practice in order to know if it can be useful to actually propose a change in the curriculum or in the classroom reality, let's say, in order to actually have something that we can say, okay, this can be done in order to improve this scenario in Costa Rica. Not only like concluding the fact that there is actually a misalignment and the changes are needed, right, in the curriculum. But I guess that that is something that I was just thinking about.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think that we won't have time for questions though. Maybe only one question from the audience who would like to ask something. Okay, Andres, thank you.
Yes, well, more than a question, it was a comment. For me, it was interesting to see how teachers mentioned that the curriculum should offer strategies to help students overcome these affective barriers that sometimes are not mentioned in the curricula, right? So more than a comment, I think it was interesting to me because I think that teachers, besides teaching the language, they have to teach, right, how to help students be confident and overcome low confidence and anxiety and all these things that honestly we don't get taught how to do, but we have to, figure it out. So more than a question, it was a comment about the results you shared.
Yeah, even with this, there's this concept, language anxiety, which is a reality. It is a construct, and it's one of the biggest challenges for students and when learning another language. And little we know, right, about it, and how much training we get, and what are all. I mean, it's and I guess that it's not only the stigma, but also the responsibility behind emotions. Like sometimes we don't feel prepared. I have this colleague who says, like, it's very serious, like, not joking, like, I never ask my students how they feel, because it's like, it can be a Pandora box. And then what do I do with that information if I don't have the skills? I think that that's extreme, right? Because I feel like as humans, we can connect. But I understand his point, right? Like, we don't have any strong psychological training to deal with heavy constructs. Okay,
And
thank you
that is
very much. Okay.
no, I was thinking that that would be like a different proposal for,
Yeah, I'll
but
follow
I
up.
don't think I don't know how confident teachers
Yeah.
would be sharing, because I think that as some psychologists need to pass a test of psychology to be psychologists, some of us, including myself, I mean, we all should be told that we are emotionally ready, because
Mm-hmm.
I've seen teachers who say to students, "You're here because I pay taxes, and you should
Mm-hmm.
be thankful." And the students, and they complain everywhere, and how can they learn the language with a teacher who treats
Mm-hmm.
them like that? And that person should be told, like, "Hey, you shouldn't say that. Why? What is your problem? Is there?" And then the person will find that that person has a big problem that needs to be addressed. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen very soon in the future, because we're less and less um, human or humanistic in the
Yeah.
universities.
Mm-hmm. More
But it
individualized.
affects. Yeah, it affects, because many students say, okay, I cannot learn English, just as some say I cannot learn math.
Mm-hmm.
English
Mm-hmm.
and math are the two subjects that can become like the biggest failure for people, and they say I couldn't do it. It's and they suffer, and sometimes the problem is not in their heads, it's on
Mm-hmm.
the people who try to teach them. But that is a different topic, right? That is
Yeah.
related to the
Yeah.
emotional barrier that we have to face every day. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you very much. Now we're gonna continue with Oscar and Katarina, and I'm trying to see if can you see a timer on the screen? Yeah. Oh my God. Okay.
Yes, Professor.
I this is my first time using this. Okay, so the timer is there. You have 5 seconds. Just Oscar and Katarina. Okay. I mean more than 15. But I don't want, it says that it's gonna ring. So I'm sorry if it rings. Okay. And let's see. Yeah, we can see your
Please let
screen.
me know. Thank you.
Mhm.
So just bear with me 1 second. Okay. So hello, professor and classmates. Um, My name is Oscar Rodriguez, and this research was conducted together with my classmate Katarina Bosgraf. Our study is titled Students' Perception of Inverted Classroom Instruction in Their On-Site English Language Learning Process. In this research, we explored how adult English learners at a private language institute in Costa Rica experience the inverted classroom model. We explore what they find valuable about it, what challenges they faced, and what factors they believe shape their learning. Let me start with the introduction. So, the inverted classroom instruction model is a teaching approach that reorganizes how learning time is used. Instead of receiving new content in the classroom, the students engage with that material before class. It can be in the form of videos, it could be readings or digital tasks. Then, when they come to the physical classroom on site, they spend that time doing communicative activities. It could be practicing, collaborating with peers, and solving problems together. This makes the inverted classroom model a particularly interesting model for teaching as a foreign language learning because it frees up class time for the kind of meaningful interaction that promotes real language use. However, even though inverted classroom has received growing attention in the literature, very little research has been focused on how adult learners, specifically those studying in a private on-site language institute in a Spanish-speaking country like Costa Rica, actually perceive this model. So that gap is what our study set out to address. So regarding the literature review, to build the theoretical foundation of this study, we reviewed existing research organized around four main areas. Number one, we looked at inverted classroom Spanish speaking higher education type of studies, what has been documented in Latin America and and in Spain in this type of academic context. We also examine research on students' perceptions and satisfaction in higher education, since understanding learner experiences at the heart of our inquiry. Third, we reviewed studies on inverted classroom in English language teaching, focusing on EFL specific application of the model. And fourth, we identified gaps in the literature review, which pointed us toward adult B1 learners in Costa Rica, Costa Rican language institutes, and as an underexplored population. That final gap became the focus and the justification for our study. Regarding the overarching research question, based on what we found in the lead review, we formulated the following overarching research question. To what extent does the inverted classroom instruction model hinder or benefit the second language acquisition process of B1 adult EFL learners in a language institute? This question guided every decision we made throughout the study, from how we designed our instruments and the way we interpreted the data. The research questions, to make this inquiry more manageable and precise, we developed four specific research questions. The first one, how does this model occur in an on-site language learning setting? Here we wanted to understand how the model actually operates in practice, what it looks like in this particular context. Second question, what are the benefits of implementing this model for EFL adult learners? This allowed us to document the positive outcomes that participants perceived. And the third question, what are the challenges of implementing this model for EFL adult learners? So with this question, we try to capture the difficulties and tensions that emerged during implementation. And the last one, what factors do adult students perceive as influencing their learning process in an on-site environment? This broader question invited participants to reflect on everything. It could be personal, contextual, and instructional that they felt affected their learning. Let me just see, 9 minutes. Okay, perfect. And regarding the methodological approach, now let me explain how we actually conducted this study. We used a qualitative interpretivist case study design. So we chose this methodology because our goal was not to measure the outcomes statistically. It was more to understand the lived experiences and personal perceptions of our learners. So we collected data using three instruments. The first was a questionnaire, which gave us or provided us a baseline information about participants' attitudes and experiences. The second was the semi-structured interviews, which allowed us to have an in-depth, individualized conversations with each participant. And the last one was the SWOT-based focus group where participants collectively reflected on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats they associated or they thought about with the inverted classroom model. We then triangulated all the three sources, and meaning that we cross-reference the data across the instruments to identify both converging and diverging themes. And this process strengthened the credibility and the trustworthiness of our findings. Okay, now my classmate is going to continue.
Okay, good afternoon, professor and colleagues. I hope you're doing very well. Now I'm going to continue with the next part of our poster. Regarding participants, our study involved 12 adult learners enrolled in a B1 English course at a private language institute in the Costa Rican metropolitan area. The institute uses the inverted classroom instruction methodology where students study course materials before class and use class time for communicative activities and language practice. Regarding ethics, the institution approved the study participation, and participation from students was voluntary, and all responses remained confidential. Moving on to the findings. After triangulating data gathered from questionnaire, interview, focus group, we identified 6 main themes that you can see in figure 1, that's in the right side above. The first was learning autonomy. Participants said that the methodology encouraged them to prepare before class and become more responsible for the learning process. The second main finding that we found was classroom engagement. Students in this theme describe classes more dynamic because they spend more time practicing English instead of listening to explanations provided by the professor. A third theme emerged during this process that was the most frequent, actually, and this one was peer interaction. Participants valued working with classmates because it increased their confidence and provided more opportunities for communicative practices in English. The fourth finding was flexibility. Since these were adult learners, students appreciated studying at their own pace and reviewing materials whenever necessary. However, there were some themes that emerged that were the challenges that students perceived in this process. And the first one was limited teacher feedback. So during the pre-class phase, some participants wanted more guidance, especially with pronunciation and grammar. This was explicit during the questionnaire. The students mentioned this aspect. The second challenge was time constraints. Many adult learners found it difficult to complete pre-class activities while balancing work, university, and personal responsibilities. Overall, participants perceived both important benefits and meaningful challenges in this case. Moving on to the discussion from this study. So, what do these findings tell us? That's the question. What do they tell us? Our results suggest that the inverted classroom instruction promotes learning autonomy, engagement, and collaboration with flexibility for adult EFL learners. These findings are consistent with SANS 2023, who reported that students often need time to adapt to this methodology because they are used to traditional teaching center instructions. So similarity our participants appreciated becoming more dependent, but still emphasize the importance of teacher guidance and feedback during this process. Therefore, the effectiveness of the inverted classroom depends not only on the methodology itself, but also on its implementation, especially when working with adult learners. So, basically, on the findings and discussion, we can conclude that our study explores the extent to which the inverted classroom instruction benefits or hinders the second language acquisition among adult B1 EFL learners. So our findings indicate that this methodology promotes learning autonomy, engagement, peer interaction, and flexibility. However, its success depends on providing continuous teacher support, clear guidance, and manageable pre-task activities. Therefore, the inverted classroom should be adapted to the needs and realities of adult learners rather than viewed as a universal solution for learning a second language. Some recommendations, limitations, and future research that we can talk about in this case. So, based on these findings, we propose 3 recommendations. First, teachers should balance learner autonomy with regular feedback and guidance. Second, pre-class activities should be realistic, manageable for adult learners with multiple responsibilities. And finally, future research should be considered in this case or continue examining the inverted classroom instruction with adult EFL learners. Because when conducting the literature review, we found many studies but related to university settings instead of institutes that provide English courses for adult learners in this case. So this methodology is mainly used in university settings rather than with adult learners. So further research on this topic and related to adult learners will be essential for other researchers that would like to find information about this topic in specific. So strategies for future English teachers. There's still limited research involving adults in private language institutions, as I mentioned. So our study suggests that the inverted classroom alone cannot guarantee success because it depends on learners and teachers in this case. So its effectiveness is going to depend on the instructional design, the curriculum design, and teacher support, learners' motivation, and the educational context, such in this case as adult learners. So I really hope that this research contributes to a better understanding on how the inverted classroom instruction can be useful and can support adult EFL learners. And I would like to highlight the importance of thoughtful instructional design and continuous teacher support in this case. And I don't know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Katarina and Oscar, for your presentation, clear presentation. I have one question while your classmates prepare their comments or questions. You provided recommendations for teachers. Is there any recommendation you have for students?
For students in specific?
Mm-hmm.
Well, since we're teachers and we conducted the research based on what students perceive, well, I didn't think about recommendations actually. Like, what can we recommend to students? Because I don't imagine the student investigating about the inverted classroom, or maybe they just want to know what the methodology is about. But a recommendation that we can give to them is to find out first what the inverted classroom is about, because before taking the course, because if they don't know what the methodology is about, they're gonna. I have from my teaching experience a student that says, I value face-to-face lessons. I know you value face-to-face lessons, but you need to study at home as well. And some students, especially adult learners, do not understand that. They prefer traditional lessons in which they come to class and the teacher is writing on the board the grammatical topic and starts explaining, and they take notes on the information rather than watching a YouTube video at home and probably get distracted by their family and other responsibilities that they might have.
Yeah, because you mentioned that they have, I don't know you or Oscar, but I mean, I mean, from your findings, you mentioned that students claim that they usually cannot complete the prior activities And that is very common. It's connected to what you just said, like students and what I struggle, like, because students think that just being, I mean, that
In
class
class,
time
enough.
is enough, and it is not. They need to be more agentic, more autonomous, and take, and as you said, like, I know that adult life is about responsibilities, but they need to be sure that they take or have a schedule where they take time to, in this case, maybe not review, but to prepare.
If they're enrolled in the course, that will be a responsibility that they have to assume, like a new responsibility. And that's something that adult learners struggle with because they're not used to this methodology and they find it difficult to understand the topic at home. And probably because of time, because as I mentioned, one of the findings is time constraints. Because of time, the teacher doesn't have that time to explain the topic to each one by one in a different way, because sometimes you have to make it simpler to other students because they don't understand. So that can be a challenge in this case for the learner and the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, but you said, well, I totally agree with what you said. Like, they need to know what this methodology is about, and then before enrolling, and then decide if they want to. Yeah.
And another thing that I would like to add is maybe that in the curriculum, in their syllabus, the professor can mention the methodology that's going to be used, so they can understand exactly what is the course going to be about, what type of methodology they're going to be learning with.
Yep. And how much time they need to devote outside of class. Okay, so questions or comments from the audience?
The information was clear?
Yeah.
No doubts?
Curious, crystal clear. Okay, so we don't have any comment or question. Are you sure? Okay.
Okay, let me stop sharing and thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much for your
Oscar.
attention.
And last but not least, Andres and Alejandro.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. Good evening. My partner Alejandro Salas and I are going to talk to you about our research project, which in this case is figuring out a students' perceptions of flipped classroom instruction in their on-site English language learning process. So I'll be zooming in each section of our poster. Let's start with the definition of the flipped classroom instruction model. What is this? This is pretty much a pedagogical approach that reverses that traditional lecture-based approach by assigning listening and reading activities asynchronously, while reserving class time for communicative activities in order to promote the application of target content. For example, where teachers, let's say grammar structures or key vocabulary for the student to learn prior to the class. So with this definition in mind, we wanted to come up with our next overarching question. So to what extent does the flipped classroom instruction model, we're going to call it FCI for the purpose of this research and presentation, hinder or benefit the second language acquisition process of B1 adult EFL learners in a language institute? Based on that, we came up with the next 4 research questions. Why? Because there's little research in Costa Rica that actually examines how this model actually works in language institutes. So we wanted to first figure out, how does FCI occur in an on-site language institute setting? 2, what are the benefits of implementing a FCI model for EFL adult learners? 3, what are the challenges of implementing a FCI model for EFL adult learners? And 4, what factors do adult EFL students perceive as influencing their learning process in an on-site FCI environment? Now, before moving on to what the lead review says, it's important to mention 3 core concepts that guide our research. First, learner's autonomy, which is the student's capacity to take responsibility for their own learning. 2, learner's motivation, which is pretty much the driving force behind how students engage with material. And finally, learner's engagement, which is the level of attention, motivation, and interaction that students bring to their studies. So think about autonomy, motivation, and engagement. They are crucial to our research. Now my partner Alejandro will continue explaining what the lead review says about FCI.
Well, thank you so much and good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk about the literature review. And well, now that Andres just mentioned the key concepts, we decided to divide the literature review into the origin of the flipped classroom, the main proponents, the main characteristics, learners' autonomy, and also learners' engagement. I want to be referring to all of these aspects. First, there is something that all of us have to have in our minds when we talked about the flipped classroom. Why do we call it the flipped classroom and we don't call it the inverted classroom? Well, um, the first term that was acquired in education was the inverted classroom by some authors, and if you will pardon my pronunciation, Lech et al. In the 2000. That was the first concept that was acquired in education. But then in 2012, Bergen and Sams gave the concept of the flipped classroom, which, by the way, they didn't know. What I mean by this is that they discovered it by accident. They were two chemistry teachers who started recording classes for those who were absent, and they saw that there was increased learner autonomy, not only learner autonomy, but other aspects such as engagement and interaction that they could implement during their classes when they did that, when they recorded. So the concept of flipped classroom became widespread through their work, but it doesn't mean that that was the first time that it was mentioned. The first time was, again, by Lech et al. At 2000, in the 2000, as the inverted classroom. So we would say that the origin comes from the work of Lech et al., but the main proponents and the ones for which this concept is the most famous would be Mergen and Sams. Then we talk a lot about technology because one of the characteristics, according to Bishop and, again, my pronunciation, Berger, 2013, they define the flipped classroom as an approach that combines collaborative work that is done in the classroom with direct computer-based individual instruction outside the classroom. Again, technology is important because it is directly attached to the core concept of the flip methodology. And also, according to Juan et al., 2015, it is the easiest way to present teachers' instruction of learning contents. Why? Because it is way easier to provide students with a link rather than having to print, well, books or give them sheets of paper with everything you need them to complete prior to the class. And this is also related to Pozo Sanchez et al. In 2022 that mentions that the flipped classroom is an optimization of the general teaching learning process, particularly in interactive, cognitive, and motivational, and academic performance aspects, but only through technology. Then we have the concept of learner autonomy, the concept of active learning, which is stated as the way in which any instructional method engages students in the learning process. And also Freeman et al. In 2014 found that active learning was significantly influenced by the flipped classroom. Then we have learner engagement and learner autonomy. I'm going to refer to learner autonomy, and then I'm going to leave the space to Andres to refer to one of the, to the last one, to learner engagement. In terms of learner autonomy, Galindo, Dominguez, and Besanilla, 2025 suggests that the flipped classroom requires a higher degree of autonomy and responsibility, as it requires the students to prepare outside of the class. Now, this could be a benefit and a challenge, according to their research, because they mentioned that it is true that they face many challenges due to the lack of guidance from the instructor in the pre-class work. However, teachers should see how they can organize their time and use resources accordingly so that this problem can decrease. Now I'm going to leave the space to Andres to talk a little bit about learner engagement and the study.
Yes, engagement varies as it is directly linked to motivation and or instructional support, according to what the evidence says. This has to do with the use of technology. A 2026 study conducted in China this year at the University of Yunnan examined the effects of implementing a mobile-supported FCI model using the application WeChat, and that demonstrated how engagement increased. However, it was conducted under strict teacher supervision. So that is an element worth mentioning. With that in mind, let's move on to our methodology. So the study adopted a qualitative case study approach. The participants of our case study consisted of a group of 12 adult EFL learners at a B1 proficiency level, ages 18 to 65, enrolled in a face-to-face 12-hour weekly course from a Costa Rican language institute in San Jose, Costa Rica. They were already familiar with FCI, some of them. So data was collected through a class observation, 6 semi-structured interviews, and a focus group discussion, then activity. Here you can see pictures of the focus group activity in which students shared openly with us strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the FCI model using, as you can see on the board, a useful language glossary of terms that they could grab from the board and make their own lists for later sharing with us as researchers. So using this SWOT framework and after completing the class observation process, which in this case was a face-to-face lesson after the completion of previously assigned asynchronous work with the 6 semi-structured interviews conducted after the end of the flipped lesson, we came to discover the following perceived benefits and challenges of implementing this instructional approach. So Alejandro will start with the main benefits.
I'm going to talk, as Andres just mentioned, about the main benefits that we found regarding the use of the FCI, the flipped classroom instruction, in this specific scenario. The first one was an increased sense of learner autonomy that we are going to differentiate with the sense of responsibility. When we talked about learner autonomy, participants mentioned that they felt forced to do it. However, some of them mentioned that this feeling of being forced was not inherently bad. It was more like, okay, I need to do this so that I am prepared for tomorrow. But it was not like, okay, I need to prepare, and I need to do all of this pre-task activities. No, it was more like, okay, we need to prepare. We need to be prepared so that we can complete the in-class activities that they already know were happening in the flip class. Then the sense of responsibility out of the class was more of how much they studied these materials, right? Because it was mentioned that some of them just took a look at them, because for most of them there were topics that they already knew, and for some of them those topics were a little new, so they had this sense of responsibility in which they mentioned that they had to study a little bit more, but depending on the participant. They also mentioned what we call active learning, but they mention it as having more time to actually use the vocabulary and the grammar that they studied prior to the class, the day of the in-class activities, in the role play, the discussion, and all the activities that they had to complete.
Now, in
And
terms
now,
of,
sorry, now
sorry,
Andres is going to mention the challenges.
yeah. Before that, it says here, absenteeism or failure to complete the asynchronous work did not appear to interfere with the success of the flipped lesson. It is worth mentioning that peer support, topic familiarity, and revisiting the instructional material were crucial elements in helping students participate from the in-class activities during the completion of the flipped lesson, which was very interesting. Challenges perceived of implementing this model include limited access to technology for some of the participants, as well as unfavorable study environments, cataloged as distracting, such as their homes, low motivation for independent study despite having the autonomy to do it, asynchronous work length and interruptions that were occasionally caused by advertisements online, and a lack of immediate feedback and instructional support from the teacher, not only pre-class, but also during the in-class session, due to the fact that we are moving away from the traditional based approach, right? In which the teacher explains. So they might have felt a little bit lost because of that. So what is our conclusion after these findings?
So in terms of the conclusion, we found that the flipped classroom instruction encourages autonomy, responsibility, and active participation among adult EFL learners, specifically in the institute learning setting that we um, did research on. However, this effectiveness may depend on manageable and engaging the class activities as teachers. Um, Also, meaningful face to face interaction and constant teacher feedback and support. These findings are important because they help us understand how to adapt flipped classroom instruction to learners that need certain or need to fulfill certain uh, aspects, and also that may have different study conditions.
For that reason, we believe that future studies should explore how teachers can maximize student interaction thanks to the additional class time provided by this model, and how they can also, along with Language Institute, gradually train students with more self-directed learning strategies, effective study habits, more accessible and manageable asynchronous tasks because we're dealing with adults and time management is different, and also structure feedback opportunities at the end of the flip cycle. So we can make the implementation of this model much more effective. And with that being said, here's our list of references if you want to scan the QR code and get access to all the works cited and that we used. So thank you so much for your attention. Any questions, comments?
Well, I'm gonna ask a question while your classmates hopefully have a comment or a question. Okay. I have a comment and then a question. Okay.
Okay.
Because I think that it was Alejandro, or yeah, who explained how the whole idea of inverted or flipped classroom, yeah, the origin of it. And it was like a chemistry teacher, was it? Or yeah.
Yes.
And I was wondering if, because I understand, and you know, right, that learning languages is different from learning content. So I don't know. I'm thinking like, could it be a difference? Because Alejandro, you are a teacher, right, in that institute.
Yeah.
So what is outside? That's curiosity. Okay, that's not
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
That's fine.
Like how effective you think it is? Like I mean, for students, not you as a teacher, right? Like, but for students.
In all honesty, Professor, I have to admit that it depends. It will sound a little weird, but I'm going to explain myself. It depends on the schedule of the group. I have noticed that in the mornings, the type of population that attends to courses, right? Uh, even though they're adults, right? They might be around, I don't know, 18, 19, 20, right? So they're legally adults,
Yeah,
but
that's the thing.
maybe that's why it was so interesting to do it with this population specifically, because I have done it with professionals who are under 30 in night groups, and I would say that over there this methodology is quite amazing because they have a sense of responsibility, in the sense of, okay, I'm learning a language for this purpose, right? I
Yeah.
want this, I need this. Some of them are even forced by their companies, right? So they have that attached. So they do everything, they complete all the tasks, they understand how to do things. Their mindset is completely different. But when we decided to use the morning group I had, because I don't have it anymore, but the morning group that I had, that was one of the first, let's say, thoughts that I had. It's going to be interesting to see the results because this population is more prone to having, problems with engagement, with autonomy. Some of them, and this was also part of the findings, right? Some of them said, like, I don't know how to study alone at home. That's why I
Yeah.
come to class, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt, I wanted to be prepared, of course, but somehow it was complicated for me, and also all the challenges that Andres mentioned, like
Yeah, I
advertising.
remember one participant mentioned studying two careers at the same time,
Hmm.
two majors at the same time. So having to balance time for, their own life, and this methodology was difficult. But answering your question, Jonathan Bergman and Aaron Sams, they started using this approach because they wanted students to chemistry students to watch lectures at home. So when they came to class, they just focus on the experiments and working on the laboratory.
And
So I think what other fields did was translated to English in the sense that,
Yeah.
for example, where Alejandro works, they promote the task-based instruction model or the communicative approach. So go home, watch lectures, watch videos, and then come to
And
class so we can speak and
so
maximize the student interaction.
they're
Hmm.
parallel somehow, right? Like
exactly,
the
yeah,
experiences. So
and
yeah, it makes sense.
yeah, and just adding to what Andres just said, it was also very interesting because the first study that I mentioned, the one about Lech et al. In the 2000, sorry, it was interesting because over there they mentioned like the overall concept, right? But they don't give you like instructional ideas on how to use it or how to do it. They mention like, okay, this exists, and we're gonna call it the inverted classroom because you're inverting the class, right?
Yeah.
But then in that's why I wanted to create that difference. The concept of the flipped classroom is more attached to technology, because if you see how many years have passed from the 2000 to the 2012, right? Bergman and Sams directly attach technology to the equation, and everything that goes after their work, Bishop and Bergler, Pozo Sanchez, Juan et al., all of them attach the flipped classroom to technology as well. But if you
Yeah.
see everything that goes prior to their work, they don't mention technology as much.
Yeah.
So
So
I would say
there is this
that
tight connection.
exactly. And also in terms of mindset, because of what I mentioned of autonomy and engage. Well, and Andres mentioned also about engagement. So answering your question, for me, it's a matter of how mature and
Yeah.
how much of, let's say, autonomy the students have.
Yeah, because that was created in the States, right?
Yeah, in the States.
And I think that, yeah, well, we can keep talking about this. I promise this is my last comment, but this,
That's fine.
it's about culture too. Because honestly, there is it is sad to say, but in our country, in Latin America, we tend to get our way. Like and we as students, we're even tricking ourselves. And like in general terms, right? So I find that these methodologies, just like the portfolio reflection and peer assessment and self-assessment, they're very North American.
Yes. Oh, we lost Professor.
Is it me? Or
No, I guess
oh,
she's
okay.
freeze. Maybe we can wait a little bit.
She seems on, and everything seems to be on, but something happened. She's not out of the meeting. Well, that's what I saw in the participant list.
She said in the chat, power break. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's give. She'll be back.
I'm back. Can you
Good.
hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So yeah, what I was saying super fast, that works better in North American culture because culture, and you know that culture is just different, not right or wrong, just different.
Yeah.
Because what you just said, Alejandro, I am experiencing this with my students. They're second year students, but they are like 18, 19 years old, and they this was my first time teaching a class where so many students failed the class, but they desperately came to me. I remember, like, before a quiz, saying, "Prof, I don't know how to study. I don't know what to do with this information. Like, the anthology is here, but how should I memorize or learn this?" So there is this skills to study, and and it is connected, right? Like I guess it's the system that's somehow failing in different parts of the country. Because I mean, I'm and Andres.
Oh,
Kiri, kiri.
okay. Now
I,
I
I
see you.
wanted I wanted
Okay.
to can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted just to say that um this fluid classroom instruction seems to be like very beneficial, because I think that with the other group it also showed positive results. So I wanted to mention that this is an interesting proposal, and that we all should like take a look at it, and try to see if we can apply it to our daily context.
Mhm.
Yeah, perhaps the key aspect here is selecting very carefully the material that will be assigned prior to the lesson, making sure that it's not time consuming, especially if they are adults. And I think something the professor asked earlier is, what advice would we have for students? I think students should not only, of course, develop effective study habits, which is very hard, but I think there should be more communication between teachers and students, because we sometimes set deadlines that are impossible for them to perhaps meet.
Mhm.
So setting flexible deadlines or having open conversations about how this approach can be introduced, I think it's really important. So they get more familiar with it and they actually, engage with it. So length and workload are super important things here to consider as well.
And also something that I just wanted to add very quick that is related to what the professor mentioned is that if, and this would be a recommendation for institutions as well, if they are planning to use the flipped classroom instruction as part of their methodology, they have to provide constant training. That is something that we are giving. For example, in the institution where I work at, we are provided with training on how to use the flipped classroom and how to adapt it also to different scenarios like adult learners, but also morning groups, afternoon groups, night groups, and how to use them well, how to use it correctly. So I would say that that's also part of the process that the institutions should implement if they want to be successful with this methodology.
Oh, we lost the professor again.
I guess. I just wanted to. Well, I just have a comment that it's really interesting. This finding, the second one that you have there, like the absenteeism or failure to complete the asynchronous work, did not appear to interfere with the success of the flipped lesson. Like, in a way, it is positive if, if I didn't have the time, that to complete the asynchronous part, I am not going to feel like completely lost in the in-class activity. But in a way, I was just thinking, but so how it is related, the asynchronous material or work with the in-class activity, because in a way they should be like linked, right? And I should learn from both, because we cannot say that the asynchronous part is not going to provide any new learning to me, or it is not going to be helpful in a way, like to improve or to perform better in the in-class activity. So I was just thinking that that finding directly, well, I find it like interesting because of that. And also regarding the lack of motivation that students also mention, in a way, if this is like like a method that is useful, in which we are as professors seeing that the students like feel more comfortable to work with, and they are like more I don't know, they are participating more, they feel more happy, let's say, or confident in the in-class activity. I was thinking, like, if I was the student, if I really feel this with the in-class activity, it should also influence what I do outside the class. Because if I am feeling that motivation, I guess that I will go ahead and do the asynchronous part, like with more motivation. Like, in a
Yeah.
way they are linked. So I just found that finding like interesting. I don't know if you understand the way I was thinking and link everything.
Yeah,
No,
maybe. Okay, go Ale, and then I'll say something quickly.
no, definitely. I was just gonna say, Veronica, that it's completely understandable what you are saying. That was also part of this data collection process, and when we discovered that this was part of the findings. Absenteeism, that would be more logical, right? Because if you don't come to this class and you have to complete something that is asynchronous, but then you go home, you complete it, and then you come to the next class prepared, right? But the interesting part, I would say, is the part about failure to complete the asynchronous work. What happens if this student does not complete the pre-class activity? Okay, how do this student will acquire the knowledge? And here I would say that active learning comes to stage, right? In a way in which all the interaction the peer support and the activities that are directly scaffolded for students to collaborate and to participate together help them also, these students who did not complete the pre-class activities, to acquire knowledge while doing the activities. So we see a direct connection between, of course, as you said, right, preparation and the preparation, and also the in-class activities, motivation, right, when they use this approach to learn, but also how, even though, yeah, people have to do something at home, when they go to classes, it's not that they will be completely lost, as in a way that they will feel demotivated. No, it will be more like, okay, I might not be, fully prepared, but I understand what's happening and I can still complete the tasks. That at the end, that's the most important part, right? That they learn the topics and then they use the the materials as well, because they have, again, they have the materials available at the time of the in-class activity as well, so they can go and revisit vocabulary charts. Of course, they will not have the chance to watch the video, but they will have the chance to go over the materials in the class as well.
Yes, and it has to do also with the complexity of the topic or the activities that you design, or how essential they are, right? Because perhaps something important to know regarding this finding is that maybe they thought that synchronous work could be skippable. Therefore, the synchronous work matters more. And I think we as teachers need to make sure that the asynchronous work is not skippable with this finding.
Yes, that's something I was thinking about. Like, it's related to how challenging are the class tasks, right? Because then, as a student, I will say, okay, I definitely need to do like the pre-class asynchronous part, because if not, I am not going to fully understand or fully like learn or be able to complete the task. So I guess that this is like as a professor, you really need to link both, the asynchronous material with the in-class activity in order for them to to understand or to feel motivated to do both. Because as the way I say it, it does not make like much sense if I skip the synchronous part. I still will be able to do everything in class because I will never do the asynchronous part. As a student, I will think, but it's really interesting. So and definitely, I guess that if everything is well prepared and linked, it is definitely a useful method. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Oscar has a question or
Yeah.
comment.
It is more of a comment. I loved your presentation. You did a great job explaining, the differences between inverted, flip. That's very helpful in order to understand the whole presentation. It is, it's noticeable that there was a lot of uh, job behind it, especially the findings. And yeah, I mean, it's great to see this type of work. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yours too.
you. Okay, so I think that's it. So thank you all for your presentations, and what comes is I'll try to score your papers as fast as possible, and I'm gonna email the this final score and the final score, and know that there's an email for you there. Now, please be sure that the Google Drive document includes all documents that you've worked, so that I can have access to everything. Okay?
Professor, can you repeat that? I couldn't
Yeah.
hear.
Yes. Please be sure that every single document and paper is in the Drive file that I created for you. And I mean coding analysis, instruments, letters, everything. Every single document that you created for this purpose. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, so have a good weekend. Well, have a good Friday night, good weekend, vacation for the ones who have vacation. And what break? University break, at least. Yeah. It was a pleasure.
Same, Professor. Thanks
It
for
was a pleasure to
everything.
meet you all. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you,
Professor.
Professor.
And
Bye
teacher.
bye.
Bye.
Bye bye, Professor.